The issue is, what does the issue of offshore finance and money laundering have to do with the global pandemic that we're not facing, and the global governmental response? And actually, surprisingly, it has a lot to do with it, because one of the reasons that people have been so alarmed and disappointed at the lack of preparedness by governments is partly as a result of years and even decades of defunding of legitimate democratic governments around the world by this privatized system of taxation, in which wealthy individuals and corporations are basically allowed to pick and choose, essentially by their own tax rate, through this archipelago of offshore tax havens, British Virgin Islands, and the Cayman Islands, and Mauritius, and the Isle of Man, and Jersey, but also Delaware, Nevada, Wyoming, South Dakota. These are places where Switzerland, of course, Luxembourg. These are places where, for a fee, corporations and individuals can buy secrecy and hold their assets and accounts overseas, hidden from the view of their own government. And quietly over decades, this the system has become almost perfectly integrated into the legitimate, or it has become part of the legitimate global financial system. This sort of off-the-books money has now reached mammoth proportions, material proportions, you could say, if you're using accounting language. The leading scholar on this is a Berkeley scholar named Gabriel Zucman, who has estimated that very conservatively that fully $8.7 trillion of global wealth, basically 11% of global wealth, and that's really a low estimate, is held offshore, hidden from the view of tax authorities. This is money that is low in either low or no tax jurisdictions, and is essentially withheld from legitimate tax authorities around the world. So whereas I work for an organization called the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, and we write about offshore all the time. And one recent example was a company that was a Connecticut company that was leasing airplanes to major airliners, and in South Africa, to South African Airways and others, and it was paying millions of dollars of revenue. It was paying taxes of 1.5%. To the island of Mauritius, which is 1,000 miles away off the east coast of Africa. Now, why was it paying Mauritius tax rates when it should have been paying, in fact, either South African or Connecticut tax rates? Well, it's because of this privatized system that's countenanced by, that's enabled by brand name banks, law firms, and accounting firms around the world, and countenanced by Western governments. So, if you're wondering why your hospitals and healthcare system is undercapitalized in your country, like Hungary, for instance, or the government is not as funded as it and prepared as it ought to be, fully staffed, its public health systems have been depleted, its healthcare systems have been drained. The first responder systems are underfunded. Well, this is an important reason. I think when all is said and done, when this is over, I think a lot of people are going to be trying to figure out what went wrong and what needs to be fixed, what we can do better. And one of those things is almost certainly going to have to be, we have to properly fund our governments, and people have to pay their fair share, corporations, wealthy individuals included, and that's just the price of civilization. We cannot afford, the world really can't afford this privatized taxation system where where the wealthy and corporate interests get to choose one rate, and the rest of us have to pay a far higher rate. And that's the for me, that's one of the main lessons of this crisis.